listen up. Y'all, it's the queen of automation, Megan Donnelly, here to give you inspiration. Founders and business owners gather round. I'ma show you how to build systems that'll astound. Streamline your processes, no need.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Queen of Automation podcast, where we talk about technology and how it's only good when it works and how I help you make it work. And we interview lots of really cool people, and we talk about operations and life and all of the good stuff. So today I'm super excited to welcome Tom Harman. He is someone that I consider a good friend and networking partner, if you will. Yes, you've made it. Welcome, Tom. And I just don't even know how to describe you. He's a very outspoken mental health advocate for men, but not just men in general, but that's generally who he talks to. And he's a really, really cool guy. So I wanted to introduce him to you guys and let him tell you his story. And then we'll jump in and have some cool conversations about what he's working on. Welcome, Tom. Tell everybody where you're tuning in from and all about who Tom Harman is.
Well, thanks for having me. I think that's what you have to say, right? Is thanks for having me.
I mean,
so
I guess it's appropriate instead of like, hey.
So I am in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. I'm like an hour outside of Toronto.
Okay.
It's Celsius. It's currently minus 10 Celsius, and there's a ton of snow on the ground.
See, Tom and I have this bond with cold weather because I'm right in the Midwest and I get that like swoop of cold and then it comes up and hits you guys. So we're at 2 degrees. So we're not quite negative yet, but like with the wind chill, it feels like negative 10. So yay.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And what I do is, it's hard. That's one of the things I'm trying to sort of figure out this year is my full-time job is I sell appliances to large national retailers like Walmart and Home Depot, and I've done that. I've sold consumer packaged goods for the better part of 20 years. And what I sort of do in my spare time, I know we just talked about how we hate the word side hustle, but we can call it that.
Yeah.
Is I've been pretty outspoken on mental health, specifically anxiety and panic attacks, and that for the past decade. And I've sort of on an adventure to try and possibly turn that into a business. I've tried a couple of different things in the past, and currently I'm in the middle of I don't want to say reinvention, that's worse than side hustle, but trying to pivot into something that's meaningful to me. And sorry?
We'll say pivot. We'll use the word pivot. You're in a
course
pivot.
correct. Course correct's a good one too.
There you go.
So I'm just like most people trying to figure it out. Just trying to figure it out.
That's all we can do, right? You know, for us people who want to be entrepreneurs, I mean, we're gonna mess up, we're gonna fail, we're gonna do things, and then we're gonna bounce back, and hopefully, eventually, you're gonna get the thing, right? You're gonna figure out what the one thing is. But you had a pretty exciting start to the new year. I mean, so far, you had somebody new, right? And we don't have to go into that, but what I love about the story. What?
So you want me to tell you? You want me to give you the full detail of it?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Please do.
Yeah, so like I've been posting on LinkedIn for the better part of 2 years. So I've been taking it relatively seriously since sort of end of July when I joined this community you might know called Brand Build.
Were they? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So like most people, I'm trying to turn a hobby of posting and engaging and all that stuff into a business. And if you're not making money, it's a hobby, if we're being honest. So I was sort of going down the road of sort of like an anxiety mentorship. Like I'm not a therapist. I'm clearly not a therapist. I'm not certified or anything, but I think some people just need more of an honest conversation about it and just someone to talk to, because like your friends don't talk about it. Your spouse or partner probably doesn't talk about it. You just kind of need that support. So what I was doing was I was working with one client, my only client. So I'm treating them like gold, and was going down sort of that journey of speaking about what they're going through and all that. But we actually ended up changing what we're discussing. So he sees what I do on LinkedIn, what I do online, and sort of, he said I inspired him, which is really hard to hear and really weird, about being comfortable talking about sort of anything and just sort of being who I am. On the same person you see in person is the same person I am online, which, like it or not, it's just the way it is.
It's rarely.
So he actually was selling me on creating like a miniature personal branding program for him. So I was only charging him $100 a month, which frankly almost lost my first client because I offered such a big discount that he could smell the desperation from 3,000 kilometers away.
Yeah, right.
And then he's like, hey, I want you to create a personal branding program for $1,000 a month, which is 10 times that I was paying you before. And we start today. So in a couple hours, 2 hours, actually, we have our first call. And it's just not necessarily the mental health focused piece, but it's still a part of it because you're worried about what people are going to think of you. Most people think posting online is just what your boss thinks. You think they control it. And it's sort of going through that piece to give him the confidence to be who he is and not who he thinks he should be. It's like putting the personal in personal brand because that's what it should be anyways.
Yeah.
That's sort of where I am today and sort of thinking maybe I go down this road a little bit further with also the thought in my brain of, does the world really need another personal branding person?
No, because you know what? But here's the difference. You know what I love about this story? Because in our brand build group, which is the community that we're both part of, he spoke of earlier. And when he posted this kind of story, I was like, oh, this is so cool. The reason that I like this for you, just from knowing you for the past few months and really having conversations with you, I think this is great for you because mindset with everything within business.
I hate that word too, by the way, mindset. But
you know, like the whole mindset thing to me is mind-boggling. There you go. There's a pun.
There you go.
Because I never believed in it really. Like I'm like, oh, that's so fluffy and froofy. Give me a break, right? Like, yeah, yoga, namaste, not happening, right? Like the whole that's how I felt about mindset before and the belief of it. And then a few weeks ago, this was before Christmas, I had an episode where we were talking specifically about, like, she's a lawyer and a mindset coach, and we were talking about operations and systems and habits and processes and how people just assume like systems mean technology, and I'm like, systems, the first system that you have to get under control is your mind. And figure out, I mean, your brain is the biggest machine in your life. And we were talking about that. Excuse me. Okay. We were talking about it, and it was a really cool conversation because just like you said, you're not necessarily a brand strategist, but you're helping these people like break down their own like mental blocks, or get through the fact that, what's the best way to say it? Normalizing the fact that you can have anxiety and normalizing the fact that you're a human and you're allowed to have emotions, male or female, right? And that's what I love about you, is that you break that down. At least that's how I read your content, and why I think your content is so cool, because it's almost like when you're an entrepreneur or you get to a certain level of entrepreneurship, or even if you're in the corporate world, that C-suite, executive vice president, that level, get to that level, and it's not okay to have emotions, right? Or it's like this faux pas in society to like feel anything. And this crap, it's total crap. Like, what, I'm just supposed to like pretend I'm a robot, for the rest of my life? Anyway. And
because I think at that level, people believe that there's this expectation that they have to have it figured out all the time.
Yep.
And realistically, the people that work for you just want you to appear to be a human being. Like, if you don't know something, a president or whoever can just be like, hey, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to do everything I possibly can to figure it out.
Bingo.
That's it.
Yeah.
And,
and the best systems and the systems and processes in your life, you guys call me the queen of automation, right? Like, that's what's out there. And I'm the first person to say, like, if you don't need to automate it, don't automate something just to automate it. And if it's not actually helping you make your life better, then you probably should just leave it alone, or eliminate it completely. So I don't know. I think it's, I don't get that. I don't understand why it's so, especially for men. I feel the barrier between men and women, like, women are considered too emotional, right? Like we have too many
Mm.
emotions. We're always emotional. And then men are supposed to keep all of it inside. You're not supposed to tell anybody, right? Like, what the hell's the point of that? That's like help.
It doesn't make any sense. Like the one explanation I heard is like women talk face to face, but then they fight facing away from each other, and men will like talk not facing to each other, but will fight face to face.
Yeah.
It's crazy how different we all are. But like with men specifically, like I think it's all just driven by fear. Like they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be they don't want to be perceived as something other than optimal. Like they only want to be perceived as someone who's like great and powerful and makes a ton of money and all that fun stuff. Like I think sort of what I'm trying to do.
Weakness.
Sorry?
Weakness. Like they don't want to be considered weak.
They just don't want to be perceived as weak.
That make them feel. Yeah.
They don't want to be perceived as someone who can't handle their emotions that are going on in their own brain. So instead they either just drink or yell or punch.
Yes. I've heard that drink or yell or punch. That's kind of, I mean, in that order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, I want to talk about, like, this is a perfect transition into talking about, like, operations and systems. Because, again, like I said, everyone just assumes that means software. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are so many things outside of software and automation that are systems and processes, right? And I would love to learn from you how, like, because you're giving them this, I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but you're giving the people you're talking to like systems in like how they're doing things and how they're like reshaping their rethinking. So I would love to take me down that journey. Like, let's have a conversation. Like I'm somebody coming to you and I have really bad anxiety on a daily basis. And how do we break that down? Like what kind of systems and processes are you using to help these people break that down? Like break the mental block and get out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it's not funny. The hard part about mental health and anxiety is that there isn't a cookie cutter solution that works for every single person.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking today, it's like someone could be like me. They could be 37. They could have panic disorder. They could sell appliances to stores and live in Kitchener and all that stuff and have a completely different relationship with anxiety that I do. Because it's situational and experiential. There's some genetic component to it. So really what I try to do is look at like, what are the main things that are driving the way you feel? It's like, is it your environment? Is it your work-life relationship? Is it how your balance is terrible? Is it the fact that you don't go outside ever? Is it the fact that you drink every single day? Is it the fact that you don't engage with people outside of online? Is that it?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's a genetic structure component to it. And like, I'm not going to pretend to be a geneticist and pick apart your childhood, but it could be any of that. But I think the biggest part of it, especially with mental health or like imposter syndrome or posting on the internet, it's building up like a stack of like undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. So it's like going through these situations and doing these things to prove to yourself that you can do it. And like, it sounds hokey and like I'm hanging healing crystals from my rearview mirror and all that stuff, but it's like for me, like with panic attacks, I basically had to relearn how to do everything. And like the first thing I had to learn was how to leave the house. So I remember my first task I ever did was take the garbage out. It was the biggest thing I had to do that day, was take the garbage, walk around the corner of my condo, put it in a dumpster and come home. And that was it. That was step one.
You know what though? I want everybody to listen to him say that again, right? If I could do the little and rewind it, the soundbite, take the garbage out, right? Like one simple task. This is what you guys need to think about for your business and your life in general. It goes so far beyond like, yes, for people who are struggling with anxiety, panic attacks, and all of this stuff, this is a great methodology for them to kind of help them get through it. But this is a good methodology for everybody. Like when you're feeling stuck in your business as an entrepreneur, or like even if you're in the corporate world, one simple task at a time. Break everything down to like, you should have 3 big tasks a day and that's it, right? And you should be able to accomplish those 3 tasks. Everything else goes away. If you start trying to take on the world of so many things at once, you're never going to get through or past the barrier of the one thing. And I think people take on too much. Multitasking doesn't actually exist. Like,
No.
the whole multitasking thing is just, it's not real, people. It's not real. I'm telling you right now, the more you try to multitask, the less successful you're going to be because you're focused on too many things. Your mind can't.
I think that's the hardest part. Is like for me, when I had panic attacks and anxiety sort of ruined me, I'm like, okay, I need to try and learn how to get out of it. So I went from I was pretty broken to like back to normal. So I hit baseline. I'm like, okay, I'm back to normal. So, but now that I saw the human brain had the ability to do terrible things to me, I was like, okay, what awesome things can it do? So like most people, I got trapped in the productivity hole of I want to do so much more all the time, keep checking the box, all that stuff, and like time blocking and Pomodoro techniques and all this stuff because it feels good. It feels good to plan things, and sometimes feels better to make a plan than it does to actually do something. So it's like I had color-coded calendars and $50 journals and all that stuff. But like, it doesn't actually solve everything.
Yeah.
So like what I'm doing now is rereading this book called like Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And it's about like doing less because like you could have 25 things on your to-do list.
Yep.
They could all be important. They could all benefit you. But like, what are the most beneficial ones? That's the hardest part now in 2025 is our choices are unlimited. So there's tons of good ideas, but it's like, how do you choose to work on the ones that are really the most impactful? That's why I think sort of getting back to the systems piece is like, I have to ask myself the same question every single day. And it's like, what is the most important thing that I can complete today that's going to drive towards goal X or whatever it is? And I have to do it every single day, or else I'll get distracted being like, should I create a YouTube channel? Should I start another podcast?
Right.
Like, it's so easy to get trapped in that hole. But if you don't have your own personal systems in place.
There's too many things to do. There's too many things to focus on. There's too many new ways to reach people, to talk to people, and to do, like they take this podcast, for instance, right? Somebody asked me a couple weeks ago, again, before the holiday break, and before I took time off, they're like, are you still going to do the podcast in 2025? I said, absolutely. And they started asking questions about like, how successful is it? And, kind of, the normal like metric questions, KPI questions, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't know. And they looked at me and they're like, yeah, but you're a data and numbers person. I was like, yes, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I talk about it all the time. When you get so focused on data and numbers, like the numbers, everybody always talks about like the vanity metrics and stuff like that. But when you get so focused on that across the board in your business, you'll never get out of it. You'll never actually get to where you want to get to, right? Like I hate the whole analysis paralysis, but it's real. And it's real across the board. Like you were just saying, focusing on so many things, and you've got the journals and you've got all these things telling you what to do. By focusing on less and freeing up space, it means the quality of what you're focusing on is so much better. And I think that's where people don't realize is that they're getting a lot done, sort of, but are you really? Like, are you really moving the needle? So for me, the podcast is, I love doing this. I love having these conversations with people. I love getting to know people and networking. And you know what? Is it going to make me $1 bazillion? Probably not, unless I can find really awesome sponsors overnight, whatever, like people that want to hear me talk. But that part doesn't matter because for my lifestyle and what I want to, like, it's part of my life goal, right? I want to talk to more people. I want to learn more about people and the types of things that they're working on, especially entrepreneurs like yourself who have a full-time job and they're doing this thing on the side. And I've talked to so many different types of business owners, and it's so freaking cool, right? Like I've made so many awesome networking relationships and partnerships and friendships over the last year that there's no way I'm closing it down. So I think the point and you tell me, the point of the whole thing is by doing less and focusing on what you actually enjoy and getting rid of the rest of the crap. What do I always say? Automate, delegate, or eliminate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may not necessarily be able to eliminate things off your list, but if you really don't like doing something, you can delegate it to somebody else, or 90% of the time you can probably automate it, which is why I went down the operations and systems, like the technology side of it, because it's one of those things where I love giving back freedom to people, like time freedom, because it's the only thing we can't do. Or trying to help people when they are stuck, how do they get out of it? Like, how can we get them out of feeling stuck in their business? And can we do it with a piece of technology, or does it even need a piece of technology? Is it something you need to focus on, or can you just eliminate it from your life completely?
Yeah,
I
and
think
like
people are
your
scared to
point about
eliminate.
like the point about your podcast that really stuck out is like you don't have to optimize everything.
Bingo.
Like I did a podcast in 2020 with a friend of mine. We did like 110 episodes.
Yeah.
And we stopped doing it because we were both just about to have a child separately. Well, our wives were. I didn't do it. I barely did anything. And it's like, and then we talked to each other. It's like we weren't enjoying it anymore. We didn't like it. Podcasting is so much work.
You have to really enjoy talking to people and having conversations and feeling, well, here you go, back to what you help people with, feeling uncomfortable, feeling vulnerable, right? Like, I go on these podcasts knowing full well that the people that I bring on are going to ask me questions. Sometimes I get blindsided. I'm like, well, I've never thought of it that way, and unless you're comfortable with that, it's probably not something you should do.
Yeah, like I try to, like I'm reading another book called Necessary Endings, and it's about being comfortable with like stopping doing things. Like one of the things I'm sort of in the middle of right now is I almost felt like I had to make mental health and anxiety like the entry point of my business.
Yeah.
Felt like I had to do it. But realistically, I was writing about it this morning, is that if people are in like dire need of help with mental health stuff, it's like you're seeing a doctor or a therapist. You're not seeing me.
Yeah.
And like being super transparent, trying to get people to talk about something they don't want to talk about. And if they do, they sure as hell don't want to give you money to do it. Also, I remember me when I was like trapped inside my house for 9 days, I was the flakiest person on earth. Like if I'm trying to sell services to someone like me, who I was 10 years ago, I would commit and I'd bail on calls and I would like change appointments, and like people that are anxious are flaky. It's just like the way we are.
Yeah.
Like when we're feeling terrible, because we're afraid to admit that we're feeling like that and we just would rather run away. So creating a business around that is tough.
I can't wait. I'm so excited to just keep watching your journey, because I feel like it's so important, and people need people. You know what I'm saying? They need someone to talk to. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a therapist, right? Like, It doesn't necessarily have to be the person that you have, the picture of the person you have in your mind. It could be anybody. It could be Tom. It could be me. It could be whoever. Like, just talking about stuff in general helps.
Yeah, like it's funny that sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who's a complete stranger than it is like to the person who you share a bed with.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
when I talk to some people, it's like, hey, like if you, like Megan, if you never want to talk to me again, it's pretty easy to do that. You just close the window. You just never respond to a message. You never have to talk to me again. Like there's value in that. But like it's the hard part for me is I was trying to optimize my newsletter. I'm like, okay, I need to like hook the people, and then I need to give them like a nugget of information they can walk away with.
Yep.
Like I need to give you like a breathing technique or a journaling technique, but like I'm not going to compete with Google or Perplexity or whatever I use now. And it's like I went around and looked at all the positive emails I ever received back. And I used AI to consolidate it all and summarize it for me.
One of them was
like
mine. No, I'm just kidding.
Pardon?
That's nothing.
The biggest
I
thing
said
that
one
came
of them
is
was
like
mine.
the biggest
Anyway.
thing is like people are just like, I reminded them what it was like to be a human being. And like people are struggling through stuff. Like not everyone is making $50,000 a month, buying Range Rovers and going to Greece every 2 weeks. Like it's not a thing.
That's your new tagline. That's
What?
an amazing statement. My name is Tom.
What'd I say?
No, seriously. Like, hi, I'm Tom Harman. I remind people what it's like to be a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, that's super powerful.
Because like
how do you get people to, so back to what you said at the kind of, I don't know, the beginning of that statement, because that one key thing that stood out to me was getting people to talk about what they don't want to talk about, right? And then getting them to pay you for it and stuff like that. So how do you take that first step? How do you get people comfortable? Well, I mean, I know how you get me comfortable talking to you because we had humor and we were making jokes and it was brand built, right? So there was an icebreaker. But how do you do that? Like the first time you get somebody on the phone, like how do you kind of ease into it and make them comfortable to share like what's going on in their life?
So it's me taking that first step. So it's me sharing first. So it's like it's not like lighting candles or having like a perfect ambiance of music or anything like that. It's usually like they kind of know who I am based on like content. Is a weird sentence to say, but so usually there's a level of comfortability when like we jump on a call, but then it's when like I'm asking questions. It's like, oh, and if they respond, I'm not trying to help them by like diagnose them. It's like, oh yeah, like, well, when I went through this, it's like, oh yeah, when I had my wedding, I was trying to puke the whole time because I was so anxious. I just wanted to have a good time. Like I can tell stories about like what's happened to me. And that immediately makes people feel comfortable. Because then they see me as not coming from a place of judgment. It's like, oh, this person's like me. Because it sort of fights against one of the things I hate the most about mental health, and hate's a strong word, but I'll try and be dramatic, is like the saying, like, you are not alone. The stupid poster. It's like reading a poster isn't going to make you feel better. But like if I share a story about like, hey, I've taken 3,000 antidepressants or I had a panic attack on an airplane, it's like they hear that story and they come to the conclusion like, hey, Tom has been through this. I get these feelings too. And they come to their own conclusion that, hey, I'm not alone. Yeah. Not from a poster they read on a subway or something that their boss sent out from HR that they don't even care about. It's like they need to hear it from an actual human being who's like struggling too.
That right there is the reason, I'm just going to tell you, that right there is the reason that your person, your person, your client, whatever, customer, whoever, however you want to say it, that right there is the reason they asked you to do the pivot and do what they're doing with their brand. Because out of so many people, so there's all these people, right? Like online telling you about how powerful storytelling is and like going through blah, 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 blah. Like you hear it all the time. Okay, we get it. But you execute it really well, and you execute it in a way that's, I think, a little different because of the storytelling aspect, because it is all real, in your life and things that you've gone through, and it's really cool to read and learn from you. So I really hope that I want to see more of that in 2025. Keep your storytelling going. Your stories are great. Like your stories are, and they're real. And I've heard you say it before, and I don't remember exactly how you said it, so I'm totally going to butcher it. But
I hope it's not a lie. We'll see.
I don't know, but with we were talking about the top of the hour, with men feeling like they're not allowed to share the type of stuff that you're sharing, which I think is awesome. Like, hello, like this exists. You're still human, just like the rest of us, man or woman. Just tell people like it's okay. It's not gonna like
no. It's like everyone like people online are like, oh, you need to be more authentic, and like this is how you read a story, and like this is a story arc and all that crap. Like, how about you just like do it and show people? Because like I sometimes take for granted how comfortable I am talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Because like for me, like you can ask me anything, and like it doesn't bother me anymore, and like it helps me selfishly because I don't have these anxious thoughts and feelings and stories rattling around in my brain because it's on the internet.
Yeah.
And like going back to what, like with the client, I hate the word client too.
I know.
I hate all these words. Like one of the most helpful things.
In corporate, they used to call us resources. And I was like, we're freaking people.
Resources?
Yeah. Like I get that we're a resource. I mean, technically when you look at a P&L sheet, there's a line item for, like people and like whatever, but It's like we're not a resource. We're humans. We have emotions. Could you
I'm
stop
such a
calling me
resource.
a
I'm gonna double down on that. Like one of the most helpful things I ever said to him is he was talking about like being stressed about money. Someone who doesn't know me, you might see my like background and be like, oh, Tom has this like pretty tent with a stuffed dog and like this wall and it looks really nice and he's got natural light and a $20 microphone. He must be nailing it. And then all I did was I reached in front of my monitor and I held up a Post-it note that just said Visa balance. Because it's a reminder to me because my current Visa balance is $4,093.10. And it drives me nuts because I'm not nailing it. I'm just trying to figure out like most people.
Yep. I think that's the most frustrating part about being coached like yourself and the coach is the wrong word. I think that word too. Because there's so many.
I'm a resource, Megan.
Yeah. Like
I'm a resource.
But seriously, there's so many bad coaches out there, like people trying to quote unquote help you, and they're so bad at it, and they're nailing it, and they're quote unquote successful, but they're not really. It's all like a smoke screen. I would say, and you tell me what you think, I would say 90% of the people that you see online are probably not truthful as to what is happening in their life, and how successful they are, and I don't know if that's a great number,
yeah,
but
like
I
that's
think
the really hard part is because I know that most people are full of it. They're full of crap. And I know that most of the comments and a lot of the people are AI driven. But like,
yeah.
And I know people are like cheating. But like, it still bothers me. Like, it still affects you because you're like, oh, that person's doing really well. How come I'm not doing like that?
Yeah.
And it's like, I know I'm doing a lot better than other people. But it's like, I'm like, I want more. I always want more because we're human beings and we're terrible at that. It's like, oh, I only got 80 comments on that or a couple thousand impressions.
Oh my
like,
God.
that's it. Impressions are meaningless.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard
dopamine
because it's just human beings. We just focus on the negative.
It's so irritating. Like the dopamine hit of like, you have to feel like you have this. I don't even watch that stuff. People will ask me those questions all the time. And I'm like, I don't know. Ask my team. Like, I can't. I sit and look at those numbers and I'll get obsessed with watching them go up or down. And it's just a waste of time. It's a waste of time. And
I look at newsletter unsubscribers every week. I always do it. I can't stop.
You're doing that. I'm telling you.
I open it and I see like.
If you stare at one number for too long, and I'll tell you, this is a data trick. Because first of all, everything you do in business is trending, right? Like, so there's your data is going to share a story with you. Okay. So when you look at data too much, if you're looking at it on a daily or a weekly basis, you're most likely never going to go beyond where you currently are with newsletter subscribers or wherever, or unsubscribers or whatever, because you're so focused on the number, one thing, instead of focusing just on the storytelling and what you're doing. Like, if you can get yourself in the habit of not staring at those numbers, or figuring out a way to like a dashboard or automated dashboard of those numbers and dump them on there, and then start looking at them, like going back to the top of the hour, you were talking about like taking the trash out, one task. Your one task would be get them all into a centralized location, whether it's a spreadsheet or a dashboard, and then only look at them once a month. Like every 30 days, I'm going to look at them, because then you're going to start to see trend lines, right? Like 4 weeks, you'll start to see trend lines. And then you need to get down to once every 2 months and then once a quarter. So if I try to not look at my numbers even once a month, I'm trying to do quarterly. I can't even take my own advice. I'm still bad at it. But it's at minimum 30 days because I need to see the trend lines. Because if you're looking at stuff on a daily basis, you're going to make yourself crazy. You're going to make yourself so insane because the number is going to fluctuate so much that you're not actually going to see the trend line. Like, oh, for these 2 weeks, it was really good. And then it went down, you're going to make yourself nuts.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, because like I'm not looking daily. And I wouldn't say stare. It's more of a glance. It's more of a glance.
It's more of a glance.
But it's like I'll see an unsubscriber and like one of my best friend unsubscribed. But then on the flip side, it's like I love unsubscribing from newsletters all the time because they don't
And it
serve you.
feels so
It's
good.
like, freaking get rid of it.
The
It just hurts
purge.
deliverability anyways. So like,
Newsletters.
get rid of all of them.
Yeah. Newsletters are definitely what clutters up my inbox for sure. Because I sign up for things and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't even know where this came from. This is why I'm not in control of my own inbox, because it's really bad. It's really bad.
See, I am, and that's
All
really
right,
bad too.
We're getting close to time here, but this has been such a cool conversation. I absolutely love chatting with you. It's so much fun. I want you to tell everybody where they can find you. LinkedIn is obviously one place. And tell everybody where they can find you, and we'll drop it in the show notes too. This way they can reach out and follow along with your journey.
Sure. So you can find me. The only place you can really find me is on LinkedIn, and it's my profile tag, I believe, is Tom Harman. So it's TOM, 2 M's, then HARMAN. And my tagline currently is the Panic Attack Professional.
And I highly encourage all of you to click on the link below when you see the show notes and go check him out, because his stories are awesome. Very, very awesome. Thank you, Tom, for being here. And remember, everybody, technology is only good when it works, and we will see you next. Bye.